Hey everybody, thank you for joining our webinar today. We're going to give everybody about another 30 seconds in here. It looks like people are still piling in, so for everybody to get settled and register and join, and we'll be on in just about a second. All right, so we'll get on going here. See people still piling in, but again, this will be recorded as usual. You'll get a chance to watch the recording later. But thank you guys all for joining us today, taking time out of your busy day. We truly appreciate it. We got some exciting stuff, a new face here too that some of you might not have met yet. Mark, but I'll let him introduce himself here in a second and go through his background. But we'll go ahead and get started. Before we roll, just wanted to give everybody that advisory. First, if you can't hear me or if you're having any audio issues, please pop something into the questions for us or in the chat. We can take a look at that. But you should be able to hear us and see our screens, or see us at this point. You'll see my screen in a second. Also wanted to let you know about the questions and the chat options at the bottom. So two things. First, at the end, we're going to have open QA. So if you have any questions that you want to be answered, please pop them into the questions and we'll answer them either throughout the webinar or at the end. We like to open it up. We reserve some more time than we usually do at the end too, because those questions have been running over the last couple webinars. And then the chat is also open too. So if you want to chat or jump in there, please feel free to do so. So all right, with that said, let me go ahead and get this teed up, and we are going to get going here. Second. Sorry, guys, just one moment. Bear with us. Sorry about this. It's having some technical difficulties. Just about through it. Here we go. All right. All right. Can everybody see my screen? If you just pop something there in the chat. Can you guys see?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. So again, thank you for joining us today for our AI Voice Agents v1.3 webinar, joined by some team members here, Mark Hagler, as well as Justin Baker. Thank you guys all again for joining us. Moving right along, today's agenda. First, Mark is going to be introducing himself, his background, and what we're going to be working on here in the near-term future. We'll be talking about, some of that, what we're shipping, how we're shipping that stuff. And then we'll be turning on over to Justin, where he's going to be demonstrating all the new features in AI Voice Agents v1.3. And then we'll be going through another new feature that we just launched recently, which is the ability for you guys to turn on and enable mobile connect yourself in Vibe. So I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll have an open QA session here at the end. All right, so with that said, let me turn it on over to Mark Hagler.
Great. Thanks, Dan and Justin. Very excited to be here as part of the Viirtue team now. So I'm looking forward to meeting more of Viirtue's partners. So I've been here since April of this year, so not quite 6 months. And I've had a chance to speak with a few partners, but there's always more. So I'm Mark Hagler, and gosh, I've had such a long career in VoIP and telecom. So I've been in it since the late 90s, about 30 years now since I was in my 20s and a Unix and telecom nerd from the very beginning. But I think some of my experience that's especially relevant and valuable for my job here at Viirtue is that I've spent more than a decade like deeply in the NetSapiens environment. I previously worked for a small service provider out of Seattle, Washington called Threshold Communications, and we bought NetSapiens there way back in 2014, I think. No, it'd be 2017, but like almost a decade. I went after Threshold. I actually worked for Crescendo NetSapiens for a year, running their cloud environment. So for like any other NetSapiens partners that use NetSapiens hosted, I was the one leading the effort of getting all of that moved to Crescendo's new like Oracle Cloud engagement. So, but yeah, very excited to be leading the team. The engineering team at Viirtue has a number of people that have been here a lot longer than myself. Like I think Matt in particular on our team's just an absolute rock star, and he's been here close to a decade now. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, I think actually even longer.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. So yeah, we're excited. So I've been helping the team. I think we've made some really excellent progress and improvements on like platform stability and scale. We've been really working on scale and getting more capacity, more bandwidth, more server presences to take on like the increasing growth that we're celebrating at Viirtue. So it's been very nice. Gosh, what are we up to, Dan? There's so much going on that I'm new here, and my head is swimming a little bit, kind of taking over the reins from Wojtek, who had a very nice tenure for the past, I think it was 6 years at Viirtue, but kind of recently, I think the message is I'm trying to consolidate what used to be kind of two separate teams into just one cohesive engineering team, and then the thought really is to try to have the whole team kind of think about everything we do here at Viirtue as sort of increasingly one unified platform. So there's a couple exciting things that we're working on. We're in the early stages of design and like kind of coming up with a concept for Viirtue's own soft phone and mobile app that we will officially write ourselves instead of using the like NetSapiens has the GoVoIP one that's just off the shelf NetSapiens, but excited to write our own because then we can control the surface, control the user experience, and start to integrate more of the things that are currently kind of separate user experiences, like just ideas that I'm having is faxing, the AI agent, and then the NetSapiens voice call center environments, text messaging. We're working on a group text messaging project that I'm pretty excited about. But I think the idea of a soft phone and a mobile app is going to be really cool because we can kind of package all of that in a single login, a single one pane of glass, as they say. So the soft phone is it's a great idea, but like the early stages of it are we're starting the legwork to develop the back end kind of unified API to enable the provisioning of all of that. So any more on that one? I don't have, it's not far enough along that I have a demo to show anyone at this point, but Dan or Justin, any more on the soft phone that you want to add?
This has been arguably the biggest ask that we've had this year. As everybody knows, we have 2 different soft phone products today. They're both pretty good products. They both have their pros and cons, but the repetitive, we get a lot of the repetitive asks from you guys, and that's what we're really looking to solve that and some more, as Mark said. So we're looking to solve the problems that you guys have brought to us with the current apps, make them better, take the best of both worlds, plus, just like Mark said, integrate our other experiences in so it feels just like one nice experience.
Yeah, it's going to be very nice. Another thing that has been kind of cooking here in the past few weeks at Viirtue Labs, I'll call it, is this MCP server that we're pretty excited about. I don't know, Dan, you're more involved in that than I have been, but I don't know a timeline as to when we can expose it. We can maybe give a little peek of it today, but.
Yeah, so the goal was, and some of you are joining us next week for our Philadelphia Regional Connect. So the folks in that meetup will actually get access to it. They'll get to see it. They'll get to play with it, kind of see exactly what it does. We're going to be launching this as like a beta, so we'll be testing it internally as we're doing now. We'll be bringing in some partners that are part of that partner advisory board. You might have seen us in the Viirtue community post about a couple of weeks back. So we'll be escalating the access that we give, if you will, because as you can imagine, one MCP connector to all of our different interfaces. We need to put that through some rigorous testing. So that will be kind of how it's phased out. The hope will be that end of next month, we'll have a webinar for you which everybody will get to see it, and hopefully at that point get some beta keys.
Yeah, very excited about that. Another initiative that's been in the works for the past couple of months, it's not a technical challenge, it's just been a tedious amount of paperwork, but the branded calling experience, we're very close to being able to launch that and market it to our customers. So if anyone's ever seen that before, it's starting to be a thing out there in the market. What I hear from the partners that we're working with on branded calling is Verizon and T-Mobile operators are already integrated completely on board. AT&T is still out there thinking about it. Yeah. But the premise is, and I think from a technical perspective, it is it's integrated in the stir and shaken framework. So there's another data element and a certificate that we have to get. But what it does is when the call lands on a mobile device, like right now on iPhones and Android, you can tell if the call was stir and shaken signed, at least on my iPhone. If you look in your call history, there's this like little check mark icon. So that means that the signed token thing on the stir and shaken made it all the way to the handset, which is great. So branded calling is really just an evolution of that, where there's just like one more little blob of text in that JSON array. But what it does is like you can actually have like an enrolled logo. So when your business calls out to your customers on their mobile devices, on the screen of the Android or iPhone, it will pop up with the name of your business and your actual logo and, you know, some strong words about, you know, verified caller. So it's the total opposite experience of, you know, you showing up on someone's mobile device as unknown or possibly even spam likely, which we all know is a big problem. So so we are days away from like dog fooding that ourselves with Viirtue's business, but close to having I guess I'm going to go out on a limb because I don't run sales, but close to having a pricing model and some information that we can put in front of customers. Because I think there's any number of customers that are, you know, calling customers for important reasons that you'd want to, you know, present your business as validated, confirmed with a brand logo, and that will probably do wonders to increase the likelihood of a mobile phone user wanting to take the call. So excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, Dan.
We'll keep it moving. Well, thank you, Mark. Hopefully you guys appreciate Mark
excited
being
to be here. Yeah.
Pleasure, man, working with you so far. Just
it's been,
you know, just the brains bouncing off of each other.
It's been fun. I have so many ideas that I'm excited about. I mean, I'm legitimately very excited to be here as part of Viirtue and, you know, part of a team that can pull the pieces together and move pretty quickly on this stuff.
Love it.
So got a bunch of stuff in my brain that I would love to make happen here at Viirtue.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for giving us the background. At this point, let me kick it on over to you, Justin. We'll go through, actually, let's go through the slides first, right? And then you want to go through the live demo? Does that work?
Yeah. Do that. A nice little tidbit here.
Yeah. So we'll go through it. All you, Justin.
All right, cool. Let's hit that next one. So with AI voice agents, you can imagine just being AI, it develops at velocity. And one thing that I'm actually very proud of recently is that we have total control over when to turn things on, when to turn it off. We go through a lot of QA testing for this as well as the rest of our platform. But this is just one of those iterations, right, to where we get to roll out new features for you guys, specifically ones that are asked for the most. And as you can see, we've got our top 3 here. We'll talk about a couple more here towards the end. And then I'll dive in and just give you guys, I know we got screenshots that are in these slides, but we'll just get kind of a feel of what it looks like or how it works. You won't be able to hear voices just because of how this live storm works. So we're not going to go through that product, but I do want to just kind of just show you how it looks and kind of go from there. And we'll handle any questions in the Q&A. But top 3 that we got here. So Cartesia. So we did a recent upgrade from version 2 to version 3, and this has improved quite a bit, and especially in my testing, specifically the cadence of the conversation, just basically making this AI voice agent sound more human, right? It handles, things like annotation better. Name pronunciations are better. Granted, we do also have a pronunciation tool if there are difficult names or words that you'd like to clarify for the AI voice agent. Also things like speech pacing. Now, there are cadence controls outside of just this version upgrade that you can use within the platform that I'll show you. But essentially, and if we want to drop it in now to the chat, I've made a video that basically compares version 2 to version 3 and how it sounds. And again, it all just comes down to, again, being more human. We're not trying to trick anybody, right? At the top of the call, you typically want to announce that it's an AI voice agent, but we do want it to sound more human, more kind of personal. And I do believe that version 3 sounds quite a bit better than version 2. Now, another important one, number 2 here, is going to be RAG support. So with RAG support, this is essentially piling on to the ability to link to websites, right? So you've got information that lives on a website, sure. All right, you can link to it. It'll scrub it during the calls when a condition is met. But with RAG support, this is actually allowing you to do 2 things. Number 1, to upload documentation. Now, why this is important is because, things change, right? Your procedures, your policies, terms and conditions, you name it. And sometimes it's more difficult to go into your agent instructions and improve those rather than just upload a new document, right? Whatever actually goes through your process at that point in time, your menus, pricing sheets, just basic FAQs. So you can essentially drag and drop most common files, PDFs, docs, and so forth. We'll get a peek at what that looks like here in a second, to where essentially you can have your AI voice agent refer to those documents rather than just simply rely on your instructions or, again, a link to a website, which is super neat. And you can also link it to things like databases, right? So if you do have a database that's hosted on the network, on the web, you can essentially also input that URL to where now it has direct access to that information that you can basically update in the background rather than, again, have to keep messing with your instructions, make changes, and so forth. And that's also important because some of our partners actually give their end users access to the AI voice agents, and that's just more of a learning curve, right? So instead of, hey, update your instructions, you can now reference a document or reference directly to a database, again, to just kind of keep the conversation, the reference rolling. Now, the last one here is actually probably my favorite one to test with, the warm transfer. We've updated the appearance in the GUI of how exactly that looks, how it functions, so you don't have to type in little words or make a guess and so forth. So now with warm transfer, this basically just gives you the ability to essentially say, hey, when the time or condition is met, somebody wants to talk to support, they want to talk to billing, they want to talk to me, Justin, at that point in time when that condition is met, that's when it's going to start collecting information, right? So it's going to go down a questionnaire that you built, essentially the questions, information that you want to collect. And then from there, once that or before that transfer actually happens, it's going to put the inbound caller on a nice music on hold, which you can also modify now, which I'll mention here in a moment. But from there, it's going to dial me at whatever my endpoint is, whether it's a specific extension, a specific device of mine, because you can have up to 7 on the Viirtue platform, or from there, maybe even transfer off-net to my cellular phone that's in my pocket. And what the bot is going to do, the AI agent, it's going to share that collected information with me and give me a 1-2 punch option to accept or deny the call. If I accept it, obviously we're chatting. If I deny it, your further agent instructions can kind of redirect where exactly that call needs to go as an endpoint. I probably ruined the rest of the slides, but that makes it easy for us to kind of bomb through. So let's hit that next one and just get into Cartesia. All right. So with the upgrade to version 3. So yes, we did upgrade to it's not the latest version, but a later version of it that we've tested and gone through. And again, this really starts to dive into it, making it sound a little bit more human, right? But we're not just flipping the switch on you guys, all right? So anything that's previously built in your AI voice agents and so forth, it's not going to change overnight. It's going to be up to you to go in there, choose the model, and then from there, reselect the voice. And at that point in time, it will be updated. So you can still use version 2 if you're happy with it. I would highly suggest to try out version 3. And as you can see here, we can all read in these slides, but it's definitely recommended to test it, make sure it does your bidding, sounds like you wish, and so forth, is improved before you start to move that over to clients. So again, it's not going to be an overnight change. You will have that control to be able to pick and choose which version that you'd like to use, at least for the meantime. All right. And we'll take a peek at what this looks like, how to select it. It's all very simple. It's just in the voice drop down. But essentially, also what this has added are further voices. So you'll have more to choose from. I'm sure we're going to see more and more and more come down the pike very soon with our next iterations and so forth. But again, just gives you more options for voices, improves the cadence of the conversation. And of course, also, again, you'll have that choice. So we can bomb through this one. Let's go to the RAG support here. And like I said before, I kind of already killed this with our first slide, but either way, just kind of give you guys a feel of how this works. So what you'll do in the AI voice agent, you'll have basically a knowledge base button that you can choose. And then from there, you can start to build your own knowledge bases. And then from there, you can start to select them or apply them to the AI voice agents that you've created. All right, typically folks get away with one, so that's generally not an issue. But either way, you can pick and choose what you select in terms of connected information to your particular agent. All right, and again, this is just meant to cut down on the referral time. So how long it takes for your bot to either scrub a website, if not multiple. Why do all that? When again, you can just start to upload documentation for that quick referral. And again, it just makes it easier to maintain down the way. So that's RAG support. This is another one that I'll show you, give you a visual on here. I think the next slide actually has a screenshot, but we'll dive more into it if we want to bump to that one. Just a quick glimpse at what it looks like. We'll get into it, but it's very simple to set up. Again, create a new knowledge base, start to connect your documentation. There's no limits that I've found, at least at this point. Dan, keep me honest, anybody else that knows better, but I do not believe that there is a limitation. But also, again, you can start to link this to databases, right? Again, pricing sheets, pretty important. So maybe if you had a URL to something like a sheet or some other system that's collecting that information and that you're updating, at that point in time, again, this bot can start to reference that information to, again, make things happen a little bit quicker, and as well as keep you from having to build so many instructions. Here's when to reference this website. Here's when to reference that website. It basically just always has that information in its back pocket. Let's go on to my favorite one. I know it's probably the less impressive one, but the warm transfer. We did change how it looks, all right? And kind of, this is my favorite one because it eliminates kind of the worst parts of handling a call, right? Especially with an AI voice agent, right? That transfer of information, or if you have multiple agents connected together, you don't want to ask those same intake information questions over and over and over. So now what this can do is basically say, hey, I'm going to collect this information when that condition or time is met to transfer off to an actual human being. Now I'm actually going to share it with them, right? So what's your first name? What's your last name? What's your best contact information? What's your email address? What's your favorite color? You can ask it or tell it to do all of that and collect that information. And again, put somebody on a nice customizable music on hold if you didn't want to use the default. And then from there, start to share that information with the endpoint. Say myself, again, for example, I know we already went through this, but I want to know what exactly the context of this call is before it's in my ear. And this can do that to, again, just kind of steady the pace and make sure, again, that the inbound caller is not being annoyed in any way, shape, or form by being asked that same information over and over and over. I've met the agent. Now it's time to transfer. I don't want to have to ask, well, what are you calling about? What's your name? And so forth. I can put that at the front of the line and, again, have the AI voice agent do that for me without having to, again, annoy anybody. All right, so let's go on to, I believe the next slide is going to be some of the other smaller details that we've added. And it's not all of them. You're going to see a couple little things sneak in here and there that are probably not on this slide, but important ones. All right, so failover destination. God forbid that agent's not available. It's not working for whatever reason. It's offline, essentially. Now you can input either extensions or even off-net numbers, any number for that matter, for it to be able to fail over to another endpoint just in case. Appointment scheduling, it's been there, but we do want to reiterate the fact that you can set this up with just about any calendar out there, and you can do so in a lot of different ways. We do have some built-in integrations, which are great, to where you're basically just clicking, hey, I want to connect to Google Calendar. You've seen it in the last webinar. If not, go check that out. Maybe I want to connect to Microsoft Office. Granted, you will need to deal with admin permissions because Microsoft is Microsoft. You can do those directly, all right? And we've built those into the platform to where, again, you're logging into an account, checking some boxes to give it permission to peruse your calendar. And then from there, you can start to build your instructions to say, hey, I want 30-minute sessions. I want 15-minute buffers in between. Heck, maybe I even want to add an HD video conferencing link, maybe Google Meets, maybe Teams, maybe something else. You can absolutely do so. But there are other ways to connect to other calendars that aren't built in, specifically through MCP or even through a middleware. Where now if you wanted to connect to something like Calendly, you can absolutely do so. Zapier would probably be my first guess. I'm not sure that Calendly actually has their own MCP server, but either way, you can use it in the same fashion. Now, new voice options were brought to us by this Cartesia integration as well. So along with that cadence control, as I mentioned, you will get some new voices to choose from, which is kind of nice for some folks. Maybe if you're sick of, kind of the regular ones that we've had here in the background, but now you'll have some more to choose from. And for our French-speaking Canucks, we do have French language support. So now this can start to be set in stone for that French language. And if you do have somebody that prefers that, Now what's going to happen is basically it's going to go through your instructions, your announcements, your answering rules, and so forth in French. And if somebody starts to speak back in French, it's going to reply to them and such. All right, and it's actually pretty good in terms of native sounding. Little one here, I actually wish music on hold was in here rather than the agent name, clone agent naming, but either way, it used to be kind of a rigmarole. You'd clone the agent and then have to go back into the instructions, or I should say the configuration, and change the name of it. But now when you select to clone the agent, you're going to get a prompt essentially to say, hey, what would you like to call this, if not the exact same name of the agent that you were cloning in the first place. And then the functions, group by integration, it's just a little bit of a buff on the look of how it works. So again, in terms of connections or integrations, you're going to have 4 layers, basically. Our built-ins, right? Some of the basic stuff that you can connect to. You can also connect via MCP directly to as many MCP endpoints as you wish to do so. So maybe you did want to connect to HubSpot, you just dig that tunnel. MCP is going to make that happen, and then it's up to your instructions to make, of course, those conditions be met. And then, of course, also the picks, polls, pushes of information happen as well. You're also going to be able to use MCP for third-party middlewares, to where now you can connect to Zapier, N8N, and so forth. And it's all just kind of in a nice little box, basically, a nice, easy to use tooltips as well. They're in there to give you kind of an idea of what needs to be entered. And then the good old fashioned webhooks, those are still there. So if you didn't have MCP, if you didn't have middleware capability, you can always just use a standard webhook. And again, you can add as many of those as you wish. And I will shout out again, music on hold can now be modified. You can upload any .wav or MP3 formatted file that you wish, pick and choose the configuration or order in which it plays, and then from there, be happy with any of your hot boy or hot girl music that you wish to use rather than just the default file. All right. So we can move on to a screen share if you wish. I think that's it, Dan. Is there another slide for AI? All me. All right, cool. Let's do it. And again, we're not going to dive too deep into this. I just wanted to kind of show you guys around here. And this is going to look just slightly different. Uh-oh, there we go. All right, this is slightly different because we're in our sandbox, okay? Because as you can imagine, we've not released this new version to the world just yet. So it is stuck in our sandbox. You're going to see a couple of things that look a little bit different visually, but this will be a good way to give you guys at least kind of an idea of how things work, what they look like. So let's talk about it real quick, and we'll go in order. So with the Cartesia integration, there's really not much that you need to do. It's just there for you in the background, all right? So with the voices, of course, you're going to have quite a few more to choose from. This is an entire list of it. It's going to be quite a bit more if you go back to our previous webinars and those were shown. But essentially, as you can see, we can choose the model version. 3.5, we've not gotten there just yet. Again, we do a lot of testing to make sure that everything's functioning correctly. It's not sounding weird and so forth. So we landed on version 3. But essentially from there, again, the big thing about this, I do want to just reiterate for the 3rd time now, is that it's not going to change overnight, all right? But there is a link that should have been dropped into our chat. Feel free to click that. Let us know if you have permission issues with it, because again, Microsoft is Microsoft on that front. But essentially, you will be able to pick and choose which version that you'd like. If you don't like version 3 and what's going on there, stick with it. Don't make any changes. Just keep the voice that you selected, and it's not going to update or change on you, all right? Now, going back to the AI voice agents, let's talk about RAG support. So this is another really cool one that's actually asked about a lot, and it probably goes down to having to update instructions and links and so forth. But how it works, you would start with just building a knowledge base, which is pretty simple. You can see I built one here for demo. I could build another one if we wish to do so, no real need. But also, let's go ahead and cancel these. Death by demo when you click around too much, but we don't want to rename it. We just want to add things. All right. So our knowledge source, you get this nice little, we've all seen it before, drag and drop feature. You can browse for it and so forth. But some of the more popular file types out there, you will be able to drag and drop for reference. And again, you can always change these. So if a procedure or something to that effect, again, a menu, maybe a service menu and so forth for a restaurant changes, you can simply just delete one, re-upload another. And then again, as long as typically it's the same file name, you don't even have to change your instructions. But you can also simply just add a URL if you wish to do so, all right? You can add as many of these as you wish to, again, refer to those databases, all right? So once you've done that, you've built it, now it's time to apply it to that agent. Loading, all right, there we go. So now, essentially, we can say, hey, let's make that connection. And it is on the Advanced Settings tab, the basic. And from here, now we can enable knowledge base, RAG support, and then from there, choose the knowledge base that you have created. So now you're just making that link. And we've got a nice little quick link back to the knowledge base manager that we saw previously on the last page. But it's as simple as that. Build a knowledge base, add your documents, add your links, enable it for the AI voice agent. And again, just buff your instructions to ensure that it knows when to reference certain things. All right. Now with the warm transfer, that is also going to look just a tiny bit different. All right. Before, you used to have to type in, you know, if the caller wants to speak to such and such, do a warm transfer by typing in a word. Well, why do that, right? So instead, now we've got our basic transfer instructions. If somebody does want to go off to an endpoint in this particular domain on that Sapiens, they can still to a human being. But now maybe if they want to talk to support, here's where you would build out your instructions for it. And it functions the exact same way as this other transferability, but now it's going to have that warm functionality. So it's disabled by default. Check a little box, add your rules here. And again, you can always modify this to be on net to an extension, maybe on net to a particular device, or again, maybe even your personal cellular phone number, to where again, it's not now going to look at your instructions from, or the agent instructions, I should say, and then from there, start to determine when exactly we're going to go to support. If they don't just say it outright, when exactly can I transfer to a certain endpoint? And then from there, go through the, we'll say, profile or whatever your questions may be to start to collect that information. And then from there, music on hold, share it, and so forth. And since we're here, as you can see, hold music, using the wrong mouse there, Justin, can be uploaded here. All right. So if you didn't want to have to use the basic stuff, .wav, MP3 formatted files, those will be there for you to rip and roll with. Now, one thing that I did want to mention, we don't need to get into all the little extras that we talked about on that last slide, but you do have cadence control. All right. So meanwhile, while Cartesia is doing Cartesia things, it's been, you know, a little bit easier to kind of have a better cadence with it, more human sounding. You still have controls over that, whether that's voice speed on the basic settings or here for your delays. I think we've all probably spoken to a very poor AI voice agent at one point. Spectrum, I'm looking at you, always interrupting me whenever I have an issue. That's why I went to AT&T. But either way, I digress. And now essentially you can, this will be fine tuning, start to control when exactly it does start to interrupt, how long it waits for certain interactions, as well as you'll have things in the background like typing sounds, which isn't a new release, but basically turn on thinking sounds to where now it can start to click clack in the background to let people know that it's not ignoring them. Okay. So other things worth mentioning, again, that French support, we all know what that looks like. It's just in the language drop down on the basic settings. So no real need to get into it, but I will show it to you just to prove it to you. We're not lying here, but now you get, of course, English, Spanish, set it in stone, and of course, French. And then, of course, just the standard multilingual functionality to where if it is enabled, yeah, it will speak English or whatever your preference is in the beginning. But then from there, if any inbound caller starts to speak in any of these languages, it'll start to reply in those languages. All right. Agent cloning, there's no need to really show you that. In terms of the failover, that's also going to live here, you know, just again, in case of that agent being offline, but I'll dial back there. So just a quick tour for you guys. We definitely went over kind of the details of what's been released, and certainly in Q4, expect quite a bit more. And Dan, I'll leave it at that, sir, if we want to jump into maybe our expectations for growth.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. So see you guys are posting questions and stuff in there. Please continue to do so. I'm going to go through now this next slide, and then we're going to do a quick little demo of another new feature. Sorry if you guys have that inception. Can you guys see this slide now?
It's thinking, yep.
All right, awesome. Awesome. So again, just continue to post those questions. We'll address them here shortly at the end. Next thing I want to show you guys, this was majorly asked for if you talk to Renee, our director of support, and I don't want to misquote, but I do think it's something like 7 to 9%. Again, Renee, correct me if I'm wrong there, of our ticket volume was partners asking to turn on Mobile Connect. So this, we had a product meeting in early June. Mark was there. We had a lot of the team in the St. Pete office, and this was like the universal no-brainer that everybody agreed made a ton of sense for the organization and for the partners. So I'm going to show you this to you guys in real time. It's very simple by design. So all you have to do is you log into your Vibe interface, and you'll see this new Mobile Connect button here. So first thing you're going to do is you'll type in the domain that you want to enable that for. And I'll have this test domain. And if Mobile Connect has never been enabled for that domain before, again, this doesn't change, just like AI Voice Agent, it doesn't change pre-existing settings. So if it was already enabled, if you already had users, you'll see that. But again, for this domain, if I wanted to enable Mobile Connect, all I have to do is check that box. and or click that button, I should say. Now it's been enabled for the domain. And now what I can do is I can pop into here and I can individually check users. If I wanted to do a mass change, I could check all the users in one shot. And then again, in bulk, I can enable or disable those users, or you can do it one at a time. And that's really all there is to it. So again, purposefully simple. Hope you guys get a lot of value. We saw that it's already been a ton of adoption. I think there's been hundreds of Mobile Connect users were like in the first 2 days were enabled this way. So if you have any questions or anything or any feedback on this feature, please let us know. But you should, hopefully you guys should find some value in that. All right, let me reshare my screen here. Give me just a moment. All right. Can we see my screen again here? Awesome. All right, so we found this really good cadence with our AI voice agents, essentially quarterly releases. You might see like bug fixes and minor stuff come in between there, but we're going to stick to this cadence. And this is what we already have planned for v1.4, which will be our Q4 release for AI voice agents. These features are actually already been developed. We're working out compliance pieces to them. So we did want to show them off today that these are coming next, because Justin will tell you in the pre-sales process, just about every single demo we do, they ask for at least one of these. So the first is outbound calling agents. So again, we already have it. It already works. It's already tested. What we're really working through is the compliance layer. As we do everything else, we don't want to put something out that might get you guys in trouble. We know like some other AI voice agent platforms out there will just kind of tell you to lean on another platform as your single source of truth. But as you guys know, like once the FCC comes calling, those oftentimes don't stand the test and could end up getting you in trouble and fined and all that stuff that comes with that. So we want to make sure that we do all of our due diligence before we release a feature like this to handle as much of this as we can, or at least give you the tooling necessary so you are compliant. Just so you know, for the outbound calling agents, we're exploring multiple things, whether it's like a local DNC database, or we're even talking with third-party vendors that manage the DNC lists and you know, you can tie into and potentially integrate with. So a lot of thought going into that and how we can, again, publish this and make sure it doesn't put you in any risk as a partner and put your customers at risk. And then the other tool that's, again, already been developed, but we're working through some compliance pieces, is texting and payment collection. So again, that all works. We're working on just, again, 10DLC as part of this, just making sure like a PCI compliant links. That's what we're working through, but the feature itself already does work. So if, again, during like a live call with an AI agent, somebody says, hey, I want to pay my bill, the agent can then text them a PCI compliant link to a portal. They can go pay it, that type of stuff. So again, these have just been very popular asks. There will, of course, be more stuff in v1.4, but just because these get asked about so much, we wanted to just address them on today's webinar. All right. Next, we will go on and answer some questions. So let me stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to bring up these questions. We have a bunch. Please feel free to keep popping them in here. And we can address them as we go. A few of these have already been, Mark has already answered them directly, but I'll just narrate them on the webinar so other folks can hear them. If you have the same question, then some of these will actually live answer. We'll post them on the screen here in just a second. So a question came in from Jeff. Will branded calling work with all Viirtue services, UCaaS, SIP trunking, etc.? And Mark was great enough to answer this directly, but again, I'll answer it on the screen here so you guys can, just in case you run into this. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So all of our systems, or actually, Mark, you want to, as the expert here, you want to take just kind of how all our systems route and how that works?
Yeah, sure. The branded calling like attestation is part of the stir and shaken flow. So it is already in the plumbing of like upstream from our PBX platform. It doesn't matter where the call originates. It can be a SIP trunk, it can be a Teams integration. It flows through the system, and then on the way out to the termination carrier, where we like the flow that exists today that goes to apply the stir and shaken attestation for the customers enrolled for branded calling, it just gets added on at that same step. So it's, from a technical perspective, it's already in the routing flow, which is why I mentioned earlier, there's not much to do here technically. The routing's already there. But yeah, and any sort of call flow that hits the carrier today should be compatible.
Love it. And that's gonna, we think this is gonna be a big ask for your clients. They're gonna start asking about this. So again, it should be a great addition to the platform. We have another one here, Mark. I'll probably want you to jump on this one too that you direct answered, but it's on one of your domains. Have you considered allowing the softphone to be configurable? such as allowing overrides of various buttons, as an example, allowing chat or contacts to take you to a third-party provider instead of a native experience.
That is a lot of what I was already trying to model, was to make it a very, I was calling it a composable experience, so that we can have the guts have to be compiled into the app that goes out into the Apple App Store. But you can, with some amount of ingenuity in software development, you can get the UI experience to be very dynamic. So yes, that was already kind of on the roadmap, and in that very early mock-up of it that Wojtek did, we already had that capability where there is an upstream configuration when the app logs in as a certain partner, that it will download colors, brand images, and then even a composable, buttons. The interesting thing Greg asked here is particularly third-party provider integrations, and I like the idea. I'm not an expert at iOS, like what Apple allows in iOS apps. So I worry somewhat that we can't make the integrations very dynamic ahead of time, because I don't know that whatever integration you integrate with, I think Apple wants that to be compiled into the app when they test it and validate it for the App Store.
Yeah.
So more research to be there. I love the idea, but and of course we would have more flexibility for that with a Mac and Windows desktop soft phone, but it may be the Apple iOS ecosystem in particular that makes the third-party integrations, I won't say impossible, but difficult to do in a very dynamic way, because we may have to hard code those into the app and recompile it. But the generic idea, or the high level idea of the soft phone app existing as a desktop client. There's another question later in the list that is about integrating it in dashboards, which is another great, very interesting topic, right? But that would imply that it also exists as some sort of a JavaScript web phone, similar to the one that the NetSapiens platform already has today. So all of those ideas are certainly on the table, but I love the idea of it being very configurable. Different partners can make it look totally different. But also not have to go through the process of developing a branded app bundle for each partner, which then each partner has to go deal with the Apple App Store Connect and Apple Developer Account, and that is quite a pain to have to do at scale.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Another question that came in was from John. I see you're updating us on AI voice agents, but I missed the launch webinar. And yeah, normally I would give a quick synopsis, but there's been so much covered that you probably do need to watch that, and just to get an understanding of how to deploy. It's super easy. It's integrated within the voice platform now. It just creates another tab for you within the system. So John, I can reach out to you right after this and send you any links that you might need. But yeah, this is one that you probably can't catch up on in just 2 minutes. But that early launch webinar, or even just going through our LMS training session, which you can do in under 30 minutes, that should get you almost completely up to speed. And then the webinars we've been doing since have just had, more features that have gone through our QA and all that good stuff. So again, I can send you that right after this. I'll send you the link directly. Just let me know. Another question came in from Gabriel. Will the AI voice with the new engine feature native Spanish voices? And yeah, this was definitely it's feedback that we have received and noted, that some of the AI voices in there, even when you set it to Spanish, it's still an English speaker. So it sounds like me in Mexico trying to talk to my cab driver, which is not a good experience probably for either of us. So yeah, long story short is this version had the V2 to V3 update. That the native speakers is going to come in a later version that has been, again, noted by the team. So it's definitely something that will be made available in a future version. But yeah, unfortunately, just for this version, it'll speak the language, but yeah, it'll probably sound a little like me, unfortunately. Next question we got was from Daniel Brown. So could it be given the ability to give status on a ticket? Yeah, absolutely. It just kind of depends on whatever connectors are available, whatever you want to give it control to do. So yeah, whatever ticketing system you're using has that endpoint exposed, whether it's through MCP, or if you want to build a webhook, or if the custom integration already works through something that we built, or you want us to build it for you as a professional service, for all those reasons, you can definitely connect it and kind of do those different things. Next question came from Greg. Read the softphone. Will we be able to embed it into custom dashboards? Mark, I see you already put a note here, but if you want to address that for the room, I think that's an interesting idea.
Well, that's the one that I mentioned in the last question about the soft phone. Is it's a very interesting idea, but it is the one that implies that like some part of the soft phone exists as like a JavaScript thing that can run in the web browser, which is like the NetSapiens version of it already exists. So like the evidence that like, you know, you can absolutely write a full soft phone with the SIP client and RTP fully in JavaScript is out there. So
yeah. Okay, awesome.
It's I don't I don't have a strong roadmap for that, but it is certainly like on the table, right? Everything we're talking about here.
Cool. All right, next question that came in was from Jake. Does the AI retain memory from previous calls so the caller doesn't have to start it over again? Go ahead, Justin, if you want to take that one.
Yeah. So there's going to be a year at best effort of call history, and in my testing, yes, it can absolutely refer back to the call history based on your instructions. Of course, you're always going to hear me say that instructions. But yes, it will be able to reference that, especially if you have frequent flyers. I can understand why ask them the same questions over and over. Another way that you can control that is by simply just connecting it to something like a CRM, EHR, whatever your application may be. And from there, it can start to, again, just build basic information, make a reference to whatever thing you're connected to. And then from there, you know, stop having to ask those same questions over and over. So yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Justin. All right, and another question probably going to aim at you, Justin. From Robert, what type of format for the databases? Teams, SharePoint URLs, etc.
I've definitely tested SharePoint as well as just, you know, even like Google Sheets, Google Docs, and so forth. So it can certainly do that. In terms of Teams, I would certainly have to look into that. And Robert, I'll have your email address. I can follow up with you one-on-one after the meeting once I confirm that for you.
Cool. All right, and the next question, this one is also from Gabriel. Will the AI be able to know what the call route was before it was transferred to the AI? For example, know what extension transferred the call to the AI? Did I say that right? Justin, if you want to grab that one.
Yeah, so it won't be able to track the extension, at least at this point in time. I would certainly have to retest that. At one point, it was recognizing phone numbers. So if somebody did call in and it recognized the number, it would basically either go down a script of a business profile or essentially start to go to a script of its own to basically understand that person. But I will triple check, and I will have your email address as well to see if it can recognize those extensions too.
Awesome. All right, the next question from Sally. Can the AI speak other languages? And yeah, just as Justin had mentioned, it does. The ones that he showed you today, like you can do simply French support, simply Spanish, so it only speaks that way. But the best one, and this has been in my experience too, is that multilingual option. It starts the conversation in English, but then, and Justin, do you know the exact number? I want to say it's like 24 languages it supports. But if they start speaking back in insert language here, the agent will adjust and then carry on that conversation in their preferred language. And then if they go back to English or another language, it'll flip mid-conversation to that one too. So that's generally what I've seen is the best. Justin, I don't know if you had any different feedback.
Nope, nailed it. That's it. Yep. And right now, I believe we have like 12 or so languages that are built in. There's probably more with the I'm sure that will be available in 3.5 with Cartesia. But yeah, so as Dan said, you start speaking one language, it'll start speaking back to you in that. Even if you go to a third language and so forth, it's just going to start to interact with you as long as it's on the supported list of languages.
Yep, absolutely. All right. I see the advanced tab on one of my test agents has been updated with items such as warm transfer. The basic setting is, yeah. So just that we probably should have started the webinar. So this version is, of course, not live just this second. We're actually doing that in the early morning hours, technically tomorrow. So you should come into your office tomorrow and all the updates that Justin was mentioning should be fresh in your portal. So they're not there this second. There's some things that were part of like micro releases, as you had mentioned here, like warm transfer, but the big stuff will be part of the release and the update that we're going to be doing in the early morning hours. And there should be no interruption to services, mostly just like backend portal type of changes. The functionality is already there. All right. Next question is from Jonathan. How long until will it take to release the softphone app? So as we had mentioned before, the other two things that we're working on are currently in testing, so MCP and branded calling, but we're still in build mode on the softphone. So we'll be having, Mark, it's up to you if you want to jump in here too, but we'll be having feedback sessions with partners trying to gather exactly what this should look like and what we should be building. But I don't think we have a date yet, just because it is so early on. Again, Mark, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
I would agree with that. It's difficult to put a date on right now, and a lot of the early phases that I think we need to get right at Viirtue is more of the back end stuff. Ideally the whole thing has like a back end provisionable API, and I guess my other like strong point with the API is that we need to develop Viirtue's own abstraction of a provisioning API instead of making it tightly integrated like only to NetSapiens.
Yeah.
So the engineering work that's underway now is more of that integration layer, and then just a little bit of the prototyping of a mobile app. But
yeah, and there's a lot.
Timeline. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, we don't want to give like too much secret sauce. Mark has some pretty awesome things planned, just from like just like you said, from a technology standpoint, that fixes a lot of the issues you see with other mobile apps just because of how it's structured. So we don't want to give the secret sauce yet. We'll have more details, just like everything else we do. We'll have a webinar and everything for that when that comes. But yeah, I think that the closer to being released, or MCP and branded calling, and then softphone will be after that. Again, we just wanted to share with you guys what we're focused on next. All right, another question we had come in was, how will this work? This was from Ashley. How will the AI agents work with Teammate? And there's actually so two things. First of all, it'll work like that today. As you guys know, like Teammate is an extension of the extension in NetSapiens. So you can just point it back and forth like the transfer function. It should work. So if you want to have calls go to an agent and then the agent transfer to an extension that rings both in Teammate or wherever, that should work. But we all are also, just for folks that don't know, the gentleman who's the founder CEO of Teammate is very close with Viirtue. He actually works down the street from us in his office, so we can literally walk over there. So we have a really great relationship, and we're working on just more just like native. That's one of the things on their list. So essentially just Teammate and the AI voice agents feel like one solution when you use them both. So that stuff will be coming. I've already had pretty deep discussions with Eric on that. So if you're using Teammate, over time, that'll just become a more native experience where they'll work with each other. And then even if you have customers that are living only in Teams, you can have the AI agent sit on that too. All right. Somebody asked another question, so I got bounced around. Let me catch back up. All right. Okay, yeah, will there be a live AI agent that can join a call to help with translation? Basically, a third person on the call to help translate from the inbound caller, lets the caller speak. And Justin, I saw that you had commented on this, but a lot of people don't know this, and this wasn't by design, but you can conference in one of the agents. And then at that point, it's just an AI sitting on your call. So if you want it to translate, transcribe, give advice, whatever the case is, you can do that. And that's what's pretty cool about it. And then when we talked about like having like that MCP connector that connects you to everything, so that'll be in the call history. You can search through the insights and all that kind of stuff too. So that was one of it wasn't designed to do that, but we realized it after, because again, it's just an AI agent that's connected to our voice system. So conference it in. It's again just like having that model on a call. But Justin, I don't know if you want to take that any further.
No need. Yep, wasn't intended, but it certainly does function. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Now, next question from Wendy. Hi, we have customers that have asked for caller ID name. We were told by the support that this will only work on supported devices. That means that some carriers and cell phones won't accept the CNAM. Do you think that the branded calls will have that same issue? Yeah, Mark, do you want to jump in here?
Sure.
But I think
so there's kind of two parts to that question. So the first one about CNAME, the way that CNAME works in like all North America telecom on the PSTN is and remember, this all predates like the telecom PSTN in North America or in the US and Canada. The whole concept of how the CNAM works predates VoIP by a long shot. But CNAM is it's not dynamic. Like nobody in the entire PSTN out there actually reads the name from the SIP headers, which is why we have this whole process where like to update when you call outbound, what name shows up on the receiving end. It's always what in the industry, it's a database lookup, and the lingo in the industry is a CNAM dip. So the CNAM record kind of has to be published out in this like vendor database. And then when you call outbound, the receiving telco at the other end does a reverse lookup to go like fetch the name. Which I would, on one hand, I would love it if the name that you type in the PBX user just goes out in the SIP from header and then everybody reads that. But also, I think the whole industry is like, yeah, we don't necessarily want that. We don't necessarily want it to be that spoofable. So the answer of the caller ID name is really no. Like the way the whole industry is plumbed right now, it is not set up to be dynamic. The second part of that question, though, about branded calling is sort of one of the exact reasons that branded calling became a thing, is trying to exist, is to have another way to solve that problem. So yes, the branded calls absolutely will go out with like your business name and even your logo, appearing graphically on the phone, and it is absolutely intended to kind of fix that. Or at least one of the things that BCID is trying to do is fix that caller ID name problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And we still have a lot of questions, so try and get through them. Like I said, we do have some time to run over if need be, so we'll move through these. Next question from Garvin. I saw Justin answer this directly, but can the AI agents be programmed to be able to reach out to a third-party platform over a REST API and do an action and provide a response to the caller? So technically not directly, but you can. So if you go into the functions of the AI agent, and then you have to build out those webhooks and then tell the prompt how to use the webhooks. MCP we find is always the best because it's essentially the entire API and then the context for the agent to understand how to use all the different tools. So the only downside to using programming webhooks is that if the agent is asked to do a command that you haven't yet programmed, it won't exist. So it won't really know how to get across to that next, or to complete that step, again, unless you built out the webhooks. So you can absolutely do it, but again, we found that MCP makes it so it's just simpler. You just connect to the MCP, it's got all the context, and every time the AI agent gets a question, it's going to review that context protocol and figure out, all right, this API is available, endpoint's available for me to answer this question, so I can go ahead and do that. So it's always going to be probably for now, at least, the best way to do it. All right, next question. Is there a version, this is a pretty cool idea actually, is there a version coming that will detect an accent and make a suggestion to speak in the caller's native language? I've never heard that suggestion. Honestly, it's pretty cool as I started to think about it. So no, nothing on the roadmap, but it's something we can bring up for sure. All right, next question, and Justin, I see that you answer this directly, but I'm sure people are going to want to know kind of the cadence of warm transfer. So can you walk through how the recipient of a warm transfer receives the information before the call is transferred? If you just run through that real quick.
Yep, and once again, instructions. So it comes down to your instructions. What information do you want to collect? Are we going to the billing team? Well, we should probably have your first name, your last name, contact information, maybe even account number. And you basically just script that out in the instructions. And maybe if we're going to the support team, we collect different information. Why'd you call? What's your first name? What's your last name? What's your contact information, and so forth. So it'll all be based on the instructions. And once it collects that information, and then you've basically linked it with the endpoint that you'd like through the warm transfer instructions, at that point in time, it's going to collect that information in the order in which you typed it in. And then from there, again, put them on hold and then start to share that information with the endpoint, maybe in my case, myself, and it's going to start to lay out that information in the order in which you typed it in. So it's fairly simple to set up.
Awesome. And then had another question here from Christian, and this was not that last slide too. When will the agent be able to send SMS messages with scheduling links, for example? Do you have a go live date? So it can already technically do that, but you'd want to use either the Zapier or the N8N. It's back to, again, the same compliance thing. We want to, we're just working through can we auto enroll anything there for 10DLC and stuff like that? Or does that satisfy an opt-in if somebody asks for that over the phone? So again, that was on that one slide where that's earmarked for the v1.4. The features already have been built. They already work. They've been tested. We're just trying to make sure that you guys are compliant. But you can, the workaround for that today is you can plug into Zapier, N8N, or any of those other systems, and they do have SMS functions. So again, you can do that already today. Multiple ways to skin a cat. We're going to make it even easier, hopefully. And I always, as I say that expression every time midway, I'm like, I shouldn't say this expression. I have a cat. He's the best. I have him tattooed on me. Anyway, next question from Nathan. Call transfers. Is it possible to have the ability to have the AI agent post to a Teams chat to give call details and ask for a volunteer to take the call, then transfer it to them? Justin, yeah, if you want to go ahead and take that one too.
Yeah, so through middlewares, specifically Zapier, you can connect into either a singular chat or a group chat within Microsoft Teams. I've just not personally tested the transferability, which is actually a great question to understand that, if it does reach out to a group, how exactly that trigger would happen. So I would love to test that. I can certainly do so this week. And I'll also have I've already copied down your contact information, so I can follow up with you directly. And certainly if we can, that's probably going to be something that we're going to mention either in documentation or knowledge base or in a video that we have later on down the road.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Next question from Jonathan: is the plan to be able to fax from the mobile app as well? And Mark, I'll let, I see you already answered, but if you want to take that one.
Yeah, it was absolutely right. My brain goes to like an app that is oriented around this sort of the idea of conversations, right? Because like we all know that the phone is no longer the or at least it's not the only way that like businesses interact with their customers. So I was already thinking of kind of modeling the soft phone, and like the concept of the soft phone is maybe a newer concept where like when you start the thing up, the first thing that you see is not going to be like the traditional 10-digit dial pad. But yes, absolutely, this sort of view of maybe like an inbox of all of the conversations that you or your team or your business is having with your customers. And then certainly, yes, fax is actually pretty easy to integrate there because it's one of the better cut and dry APIs we have access to out there.
Yeah.
And an extension to that I've also already been thinking about is an integration with fax, like inbound faxes and the AI. Like privacy concerns aside, it's super easy to write an API that like fetches the fax image PDF file and then ships it out to a large language model to say like, hey, summarize this. And then build it all into a nice display where it's kind of like the voicemail transcription, right, where you can just read a 2-sentence summary of what the document says instead of having to read like a full multi-page PDF. But yeah, lots of ideas there. Faxing I was already playing with. In particular, I already had it prototyped in like the group, the shared inbox SMS thing that I have in a already have in a semi-working state. Like I had fax imaging in there already.
I was gonna say too, that's also the group next week that'll be joining us in Philadelphia. We'll get a first peek of that, but that's also part of the MCP tooling with fax. Just for the same reason Mark said, we have a pretty nice API there to work with. So you'll be able to pull those into that system too and build out workflows if you want to automate your routines. And we also have some really cool like redaction technology that we'll be showing off next week. So thank you for that, Mark. Appreciate you. Next question: can the AI switch script or behavior based on incoming DID for customers with multiple DIDs? Justin, I see you're typing, but if you want to live answer, I'll put this one on the screen if you want a live answer.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure on the use case. If that means, if it's used as an answering service to be able to identify a DID, somebody's calling into number A and then represent a certain business profile. If somebody dials into number B, it can certainly do that. But it's gonna again come down to your instructions. So you'll have to make sure that it understands, hey, if they're calling this number, represent this business, and then build the business profile or script below that. So yes, it can certainly recognize that. I just need to double check the extension recognition. But yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, and then I saw a couple came into the chat. So one of them was, can AI agents do outbound? To answer your question, Garvin, so yeah, that's part of the v1.4. So the code's already complete, it works. We're just working on compliance features just to make sure you guys, again, don't get in trouble on that front. Rick had asked if the soft phone is a web phone or a mobile app, and it's both, right? I guess is the easiest way. Mark.
Yeah, could be any of those.
Yeah,
it probably will be. I think I think maybe the interesting thing to touch on there is in the chat what Mark W said. Is it in the whole NetSapiens ecosystem, and I think at Viirtue, actually no, because the Mobile Connect from Acrobits we actually can download as like a Windows and Mac desktop installer. But in the NetSapiens ecosystem, certainly there never has been a like fully deployable, and especially like as stated here via MDM or like an RMM platform where it is actually packaged as an exe or an MSI file for Windows, and a real fat like desktop client I would love for that to exist. I think there's a lot of demand out there, and there's been like years and years and years of people asking NetSapiens for that. And the best that that they've ever delivered is the PWA, the Google Chrome. It uses the Google Chrome runtime, and the PWA thing just doesn't work at all for that exact use case, like trying to deploy it with an RMM. It's just it's a non-starter. So yes, that was a big part of my vision. There was an actual, I guess I'd call it a fat binary like Windows app that can be absolutely deployed as just a standalone desktop app that doesn't have to be tied to Google Chrome.
Awesome. So hopefully that answers your question there, Mark. If you need any other clarification, just shoot us a note. And then one more here from Domingo. In a multi-DID customer, oh wait, maybe this was the same question that got posted into the questions. Let me just verify. In a multi-DID customer, can the AI direct script based on incoming DID? So different person, but essentially the same question. But yeah, just refer to Justin's prior answer. I think it fits the same. All right, so awesome. So hopefully that answers all the questions. Just trying to run through, see if there was any that we missed. I'm sure we did. But if we did, just shoot me a note. If you're in the Viirtue community, please feel free to reach out. I'm in there. Mark's recently now in there as well. I think Justin's in there too. So we're all pretty active and happy to address your questions. But thank you guys again for taking time out of your day. Like we said, we know you guys are busy, especially during the summertime. And I'm going to see what we have on deck. Like I said, this AI voice agent update will go in tonight. And we look forward to joining you guys in the next webinar. So thank you guys again. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Mel, in the background. And have a great rest of your day.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.